Our center, the Center for the Study of Law and Governance, is a relatively young center, about 17, 18 years old. And it is a space which has been built up very, very carefully over all these years. It was built up by as an interdisciplinary space, and if you want to get a sense of what its significance has been, they often say that imitation is the best form of flattery, and we have by now a number of public and private universities in this nation mimicking the interdisciplinary structure of our center. In a second way, it is also a very precious space because it's a place in which there is a kind of a social science engagement with law. And it's a very unique space because none of the law schools in this nation, they may have other disciplines in their curriculum and so on and so forth, but in creating the research object, our center has been extremely been pioneering, bringing together anthropologists, political scientists, lawyers, economists, people who work on urban issues, and so on and so forth. We also have recently expanded a little bit with new faculty, and our position in this latest fracas for which we are all gathered out here is that this year we have zero intake, and that is very shameful. It is actually the worst thing that you can do to teachers, that you tell them that you have no teachers, no students to teach for a long period, and therefore I think I have made I think my other people who have spoken before me have made a case about the absurdity of these various regulations and so on and so forth, and their impact on research. But I'd like to sort of quickly shift away from this sort of dirge to a point which I want to sort of raise. Please bear with me this thing, that this issue is not, and I repeat the words that Aisha had said a little while earlier, this is really not about the UGC regulation per se, because the UGC regulation can be interpreted very, very, very differently. If you see that section 6.5 of the UGC regulation clearly states, the one that is the cause of all this, it clearly states that a research supervisor at any given point of time cannot guide more than whatever X number of students as per prescribed caps. The phrase "at any given point of time" is important, since this does not conceive of any prospective supervision. If the spirit of this clause is applied to the MPhil and PhD program at the university, the following conclusions can be reached which facilitate the reconciliation of the various requirements of the UGC Gazette and the JNU ordinances. If you sit and look at this, the students that have been admitted to the MPhil PhD integrated program come under supervision only in the second year. That is the third semester of their programs, since they spend their first year doing their coursework. They also cannot be assigned supervision in the first year, since they cannot write their dissertation unless they secure the required CGPA in their coursework, as per clause 7.8 of the UGC regulation and the JNU regulation, both of them. It may also be noted that supervision applies only to dissertation and not to the taught component of the program. Hence, by the time the MPhil students are allotted supervisors, the previous MPhil batch has submitted and their dissertation has moved on to a PhD, which is a provisional movement. Thus, there's no reason whatsoever to count both the MPhil batches for the intake. The fact that we've got a zero intake has involved counting of this sort. And these are completely matters of interpretation and therefore of things that I mean, all I can say is that there is a vital need for us to have a atmosphere in which the rationality that Professor Chandrasekhar spoke about is actually worked out. I mean, I don't understand why the administration has chosen to take this confrontational dictate and put out this sort of diktat on something which by law is not so. It is one interpretation amongst many, and while I'm sure one needs to be more rousing and so on and so forth in a public gathering like this, I'd like to sort of continue on some of these points that if the whole thing is about making a distinction between, because the UGC regulation is articulated in terms of just the MPhil and the PhD as separate entities, that even if you were to include the PhD program, and rather that what I'm trying to say is that even if we think in terms of the MPhil PhD combined program that we are all working, or many of us are working within JNU, those who enter the PhD program provisionally after having submitted their MPhil dissertation are also not under supervision during the third year in the integrated program, since they have not been confirmed in the PhD program, which requires approval of their synopsis. They become eligible for such confirmation only upon having earned their MPhil degree with a CGPA of 6 or 5.5, as the case may be. During this time, their MPhil supervisors may be signing their papers as supervisors in an administrative capacity, but they are not necessarily academic supervisors. Thus, provisional PhD students should be treated exactly like first-year MPhil students, having no supervisor with a center chairperson signing their papers in an ex officio capacity. So these are arguments that I am making out here of interpretation, and I think one of the strategies that we need to have, because protesting by itself doesn't seem to have, there is no one to listen to us. As a colleague of mine today told me, protest often makes sense when you have somebody there who is open, who is willing to listen to that voice of protest. So one of the things that we have to publicize, we have to put out, is that as per the UGC rules, zero intakes which have been put out by the administration are, well, wrong interpretations. And if we can somehow bring that out much more openly, that's something which I have to say.